Warning: the following video will not make you happy. In fact, I hope it ruins your day. I'm a history nerd, so naturally I love history movies, most of which are centered around war. And it's pretty obvious as to why. War provides an inherent amount of drama, high stakes, action, adventure. It's an easy setup for a plotline. And most will include some sort of battle scene. You know, it wouldn't be a war without a fight or two. However, there's one thing that always bothers me about these battle scenes. And to demonstrate, let's take a quick look at the critically acclaimed film Dunkirk. It's a great movie and I love it, but see if you can spot my gripe here. So here's all the men standing around on the beach, the Luftwaffe is coming, strafing the beach, dropping bombs, men ducking for cover, oh no, here come the bombs, they're coming right at us, people getting blown up, he's gonna die, oh no! And then as if by divine intervention, he is spared. But what was missing? What was wrong here? Well, if you've read the title of the video, you probably know my complaint. There's not a single drop of blood on the screen here. You can go back a few frames and watch this man literally get blown up by a bomb and his corpse goes flying but remains intact. Then he just lays in the sand without any sign of damage. At a quick glance, these people look like they died of a heart attack, not of high explosives. Now I have a problem with this, because glossing over the visual horrors of war sanitizes and downplays what soldiers go through in combat. It disconnects us from their trauma. It doesn't help us understand why they are the way they are when they come home. Because right now you probably think that the tragedy of losing a brother in arms comes in the loss itself, that soldiers miss their friends and wish they didn't have to die, but you're missing the horror of the aftermath. War deaths aren't just an emotional loss, it's a visual hell. Take this story from Tim O'Brien, a US Army vet and author of books you've probably read in high school like The Things They Carried and If I Die in a Combat Zone. I'll pull this quote from his article, Telling a True War Story, and he writes, quote, "In the mountains that day, I watched Lemon turn sideways. He laughed and said something to Rat Kiley. Then he took a peculiar half step, moving from the shade into the bright sunlight, and the booby-trapped 105 round blew him into a tree. The parts were just hanging there, so Norman Balker and I were ordered to shimmy up and peel him off. I remember the white bones of an arm. I remember pieces of skin and something wet and yellow that must have been intestines. The gore was horrible, and it stays with me. But what wakes me up 20 years later is Norman Balker singing Lemon Tree as we threw down the parts." Compare that to the sanitized, goreless deaths of Dunkirk, or any cinematic battle scene, and you'll start to see what I'm talking about. The films are missing the surrealist horrors of war. And if you don't understand that, then how can you ever relate to what soldiers have been through? This has been the reality of war for thousands of years. We may think that ancient generals were talking about rivers of blood in hyperbole. The reality is that there is some literal truth to these sentiments. Consider that the human body contains roughly 1.5 gallons of blood, and that you only need to lose about half a gallon to die. Half a gallon of blood alone can cover quite a bit of space. As you can see here in my driveway, half a gallon is a significant amount of fluid. For example, this right here covered roughly 50 square feet, and that was half a gallon, about 1 fatality. So when you start to consider the scale of some of these conflicts, you begin to truly appreciate the sheer quantity of blood that must have caked these ancient battle sites. For example, take Gettysburg. About 7,000 men died over the course of the battle. At half a gallon of blood per person, that's about 350,000 square feet of land, the equivalent of about 6 football fields that would run slick with blood alone. And that's not counting any of the 33,000 wounded, nor is it accounting for the horrors of watching a cannonball smash into people, watching these people detonate from the impact, and having bone fragments impale themselves into those around the victim. Now, I'm not into gore porn. I really don't want to see a man explode into bioshrapnel when he's hit by an artillery shell. And I know that movie makers don't want to scare off their audience by showing the grim realities of conflict. However, you can start to see why Hollywood's depiction of wartime death can be so infuriating. It makes war seem sanitized, almost clean. It is not. It's gross. And when this is your picture of war, it can be hard to understand why soldiers come back the way they do. So, to help give you an understanding, I want to challenge you. Because Hollywood will not show you this side of conflict, you have to seek it out yourself. I've made it easy for you by collecting the works of Otto Dix, a German Great War veteran, who drew his memories from the war 10 years after it had concluded. I pray it gives you some insight into what the big screen isn't showing you.